Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the angelic realm. As we shift towards the ascension energies within Mother Gaia, I'd like to declare to you, as I've declared in the past few videos, that we've began the funneling of angelic energy into Gaia's core through these tunneling systems within the overarching, underflowing, overflowing pathways within Gaia's core and perpendicular to her being of these energetic frequencies of the linear trajectories within her oversoul's way of shifting through energy and funneling in frequency from realms above and beyond ours. Within the angelic realm, there are layers and layers of distortional fields of what is, and yet within all of the conglomeracy of the stories to be told and the stories yet to be told, the story within this ascension frequency of what is sitting in a placement of us, of where we sit on Gaia's surface and within her core, is a story to be shifted through. As we sit so much so within this frequency, and yet the exploration within the consciousness within this frequency has never been touched on by a singularity of a consciousness within our reality field that mattered so much as it does, as it did, as it ever will do. As consciousness itself had agreed to go through a state of amnesia, as we agreed to drop down into the field of Gaia to reincarnate to learn these lessons within distortional fields of all distortional fields within Gaia's core and upon her surface. As I sit here today and tell you the story of an ascension journey of shifting into a new earth frequency filled with light, filled with beings of hope, filled with projected trajectories of everlasting faith within all of the conglomerated whole of our quantumverse. This may bring about some confusion. And as I've always said, that I channel my higher self, sitting in a neutrality perspective within a source consciousness. It's not that these messages aren't coming from Christina B. It is just that the physicality of my energetic body, my energetic soul, my physical brain is unable to download or hold this much information to project out into a whole entire quantumverse within our layer of our reality field within Gaia's scope of things. This may confuse you, as those that are close to me have called me out for being different, that are so close that they lurk in my household as a part of my family system, as my husband points that barrel at my head and accuses me of being mentally ill for being able to even project this light into this quantumverse, sitting on this chair, projecting these energetic frequencies within a source consciousness of neutrality. And as I sit here and scope out my personal struggles, I would like to just let you know that the painscape and the pain scope of residing on Gaia's surface and within her core had never been designed to not serve us in such contextual means as it does in all of the tumultuous, tentative, formulative years of our lives, as we go through these struggles, as we go through these everlasting inconceptual conceptualizations within the self of all selves, as we travel through an overarching archway within the darkness of what is to come about the brightest brightness within this archway, within this arch path of what is. My family don't per se resonate with my message, but as some of them are light workers, they will soon begin to wake up to their destiny. They will soon begin to wake up to the overall projected trajectories within their soul's scope and their soul's scape of the reasons why I must sit here and project this energetic frequency of hopelessness lost within a field of hopelessness forever arching, never ever found without deceit, within this layer of a projected quantum verse, within Gaia's field of the three-dimensional, two-dimensional, and four-dimensional frequency of what is. And as consciousness is more perplexing than it seems, more broader than it can ever be in scope, more wider than it can ever be in conceptualizations within the human scope of the human mind. If you utilize your human mind to be able to wrap yourself around the conceptualization of all that consciousness represent, I kid you not, your body will not be able to hold this information, and it will go into overdrive. It will shut down. It will tear that soul within the string system of all of the strings of energetic frequencies that lingers and attaches it to your physicality of a body. It will detach it to slowly skew your perception field back into the light of what is prior to the conceptualization of dropping down into this frequency field. It's an overarching scope of consciousness that you will never be able to ever mentally grasp your mental brain around until you do, ladies and gentlemen, as the awakening process of a light worker is slow yet tranquil. Yet projected within this field of downloads comes a moment, comes a time, comes a placement of the minuscule pockets of energies that will drop into your field of all fields. It's not that one day you wake up and the entirety of your field has expanded out into oblivion, out into the very corners and pockets of this quantumverse. It doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. As you're not designed to hold on to all of this energy, as reality itself didn't design your physicality to be in this amnesia state within our three-dimensional frequency, to be able to hold onto all of this energetic frequency, all of these downloads, so to say. So as you sit there, being a close comrade, a close family member, a close whoever you are, husband to me, judging me with that barrel pointed to my head, accusing me of being mentally ill, I would like for you to perhaps open up your conceptualization field to the moments in a skewed perspective that you sit in as you wander upon this field of Gaia, coming into a realization of all that you shall never ever be within this field of all fields. And I will post this video on social media and share my struggles and my personal struggles when it comes to awakening. As a light worker, you and I share many similarities. And within this pocket, within the quantumverse of where we sit within Gaia's core, comes a perspective of the entirety of perspective within this field of what normalcy encompasses within all of the lifetimes that you've projected into within the reincarnation cycles that can never ever distort you away from the distortional field of the karmic cycles within the reincarnation cycles of what is, as long as you're birthing and rebirthing onto the surface of a planetary field that is Gaia within the three-dimensional frequency, designed to anchor you down into the darkness within this frequency of what is, designed to allow you to face that of the opposition of the self within the darkness, within the turmoil, within the separation, within the judgmental state of what is, designed to bring you home at the end of a long and arduous cycles of reincarnation cycles that seemingly never ever ends, to bring home lessons of defeat within this tranquility field of lost tranquility fields, designed in an overarching way in the conceptualization of anchoring into this reality field in your very body. Just know that just because you can't see faith for what it represents, just because you can't know God, that you've pushed away God for what it is in its entirety, just because you reject everything and anything out of your sight scope, out of your mental moldation, as you mold yourself around these mentalities of what is, of what you perceive to be true and untrue, of what you can see, what you can feel, what you can taste, what you can smell, what you can fathom within the tactualization of our reality field. These words may sometimes skew left or right, but the overall generalization within the meanings of what is will remain. As the conceptualization of the reality field of hopelessness found was never a thing, had never been designed to be a reality field within Gaia. as the reality field within Gaia had always been designed for us to drop down into a distortional field of amnesia, for us to forget the reality in which we were created to encompass, to be able to separate from an overarching, grander, larger of a scale within consciousness itself, to break off from the scale of the all in perceptualization of the perception field of where you come from, to come into a singularity of a pocket of your own energetic field as you drop down into this very quantumverse, in this very pocket within Gaia's distortional field, to live this very arduous life, very normality of a functionality of a life span within a life scope within the 2025 early November energies of what is. The tactfulness of this conversation may not become tacky enough for you to underestimate the meaning of it all, henceforth overestimating the fact that reality field in itself is ready to deliver these messages that I project in this very reality of a situation of me sitting here and explaining to you what it means to be a human being walking in this planet Gaia's surface within a three-dimensional frequency may not appear to you as a validity of any sort, of a valid form of any scope within your reality field, within your conceptualization of the field. And that's just it. You may not understand my language in this very moment in time. I don't behave like this, like the way I project my energy field within these videos. In my normal tentative life, in my normal everyday scope of living and breathing in this lifetime, I hang out with my children, I make dinner for my family, I laugh, I cry, I get upset, I eat, I swim when it's time to exercise, I go to the beach on a hot day. I don't like to ski on cold days. I like to sip hot chocolate under my roof in a warm environment and snuggle up in my blanket and browse social media. I'm so normal. And just because I hop onto social media once in a while to produce these videos that humanity will be able to succumb into the understanding of as we raise our frequency to the next octave of belonging, as we come into a realization of the closing of this reality field, of the darkness of what is within our three-dimensional frequency. That doesn't mean that during those times that I'm on this video or within the scope of projecting out this energetic frequency that I'm a delinquent, or I'm unsure of myself, that I'm putting on a character, or that I am reducing myself to a flaw of maybe multiple personality or a schizophrenic production of what is within this production field of this video. That doesn't mean any of that. I'm channeling my higher self, an aspect of source frequency that sits in the unknown human scope of what is above and beyond the angelic realm, sitting in a center point of neutrality within a source consciousness, within a place, within a time, within a scope of a projected trajectory field in which you do not know anything about, you haven't shifted yourself into. The belonging that you belong to within this frequency field will always welcome you home at the end of the day, at the end of an arduous day, as this is where the story of you and I began. This is where the energetic encompassment of source's frequency broke off from, prior to the factualization of the fractaling of our very own consciousness into our quantumverse that we sit in. And yet the denial within the scope, within this layer of energetic frequency that you sit in, is overarchingly ambiguous in the way that you've been experiencing this amnesia that you've agreed to transcend into as you drop down into the physicality of this body. I respect that. I know it far too well. I've been through it. I've lived it. I've tapped into it. I've tapped out of it. I sit in a seat of neutrality. So there's no judgment as to where you are. Even as you judge me, to point fingers at me being my ultimate closest foe within my family scope, acting as a husband to me, a father to my children, living under the same roof, as an enemy that you've declared me to be, as I've shifted into something that's unrecognizable with firmer boundaries, stronger integrity, and overarching honor that didn't necessarily need to be disclosed within any moment in time, but is felt in the frequency of every action that I perform, every word that I speak, even in the normalcy of who I am when I'm off camera. And that is not okay. That's not okay within any sense, but I recognize it. I can emphasize with it as I see things from a neutrality perspective and I see timelines, and I'm able to shift in and out of the perceptualization, the conceptualization and the perceptualization of these timelines, and which timeline functions best within any specific scenario to best suit the awakening of the people around me that they're going through such turmoil, to decipher whether or not reality is as it should be, or whether or not I've gone insane. And I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, as light workers, as you begin to open up your perception field and begin to download the informational scope of the memories of your oversoul's belonging, I say this to you to be brave, unapologetically honorable in the braveness of who and what you are. As that is so needed, as what is so needed in this reality field is integrity, period. Period. No commas, no dashes, no anything else but periods. Integrity is what source's frequency is dependent on within any moment in time, as source had granted to us the honor of being able to skew in and out of our perception field in the conceptualization of free will within these karmic cycles that never ever ends. And honor didn't treat the system of creation so much so that it allowed parts and portions of the higher dimensional quantumverse to volunteer to drop down into this lower dimensional field, to live in this hellscape, in essence of free will, to be able to fractal out into these bodies and live in this amnesia, to do our miracle work from within. And if you know, you know. If you don't know, welcome to my channel. My spiritual name is Genesis Ordained, and this name had been given to me by a source consciousness. And just because I walk this earth, I was born with a different name, and I now operate under a spiritual name that more so aligns with my awakened personality field of who I've always been within the spiritual realm, within the blueprinted aspect of my soul's blueprint. It doesn't mean that who I was has forevermore disappeared into oblivion, because I've always also been that person in the human scope of things within this lifetime. And yet I was born into this life of turmoil, of experiences, of perception fields washed upon me, of normalcy, washed upon me, seemingly normalcy, of lessons bringing about the greatest grandeurs, of sadness, of delinquencies, of turmoil, of humanity in general, that shaped and formed me into the disobedient person that I was, into the obedient person that I turned into the smart person, into the tactful person, into the resourceful person, into the triggered personality scapes and scopes of the quantumverse at large, within my very own energetic body that I hold the trauma of. And that was me. That's precisely was Christina B. The me that I was born into, the life that I shifted out of as I came into the realization that that was a personality that I took on. As we all take on a sort of a personality as we grow and learn from our specific tangible lessons in this lifetime, that differ from our neighbors' lessons, that differ from our parents' lessons, that differ from our husbands' and children's lessons, as we try to protect our children from not reliving the same lessons and turmoil that we've gone through. And more than that, the blueprinted aspect within the lessons that we learn have an overarching deciphering of who we are as a personality and what ourselves as a soul on a soul level decided to learn prior to dropping into this reincarnation cycle. And as I sit here and tell you, Christina B is no longer who she used to be. That doesn't mean that I've shifted and turned into a person that is different than who I've always been. As the personality traits of somebody is constantly malleable, and the developmental aspects of who and what you are has never ever shifted within a quantum verse, within these reincarnation cycles that never ever ends. You as a soul had always known to live in integrity, as that's who you've always been. And as you were born in this lifetime, you may have learned to behave in certain disingenuous ways, but those behaviors can be unlearned and unskewed into the skewing of things. And that's why we prove ourselves to want to become better, to expand, to become better, to learn lessons, to become wiser, to get promotions, to become richer, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on and on. But I would like to tell you that within the infinality of what is, you have a soul blueprint. And as long as you will abide by this blueprint, which you must, as it is as much a part of you as your hands, head, and feet are a part of your body, you will go through certain turmoil in life. And within the projected trajectories of these turmoils, you will come to a realization that these turmoils will drive you into certain specific lessons, into realizing that you've been wearing these rose-colored glasses, into realizing that you've put up a shield to defend yourself, into realizing that you've turned into this character in this lifetime to become who you ought to be, to become what society has always dictated for you to be, to become normal in the normalcy of where you sit. Yet normalcy was never so real in the dictation of where society had put you, rather than where you've decided to shift into as you come into coherency and contingencies within these lessons that are brought about in the ultimate form of turmoil, in the ultimate form of darkness, as you transition into the darkness to find the brightness that's always been there. And I say that it's always been there because your soul blueprint can never be shifted, amended, broken down, torn apart, or unrealized into the reality of what has never ever been a reality of unrealization. You sit firm in who you stand for and what you believe in this moment in time, but those beliefs in your standing of the belief system that you sit in are not truly really yours, as they've been crafted by a societal field of unknowns that have existed prior to your existence, and you've just been born into brainwashing scheme within this matrix to mold you into what you need to do to behave and fall into the scope of normalcy and not delinquency within this reality field, ladies and gentlemen. But as you grow up, as you shift into that in which you were always meant to be, in which you've always found yourself to want to become, your oversoul will pull you towards intended trajectories of truthfulness within your soul, into the allowance of acting and behaving on par with your soul blueprint, on par with who you truly are on an internal level. And for me, who I've truly always been has always been this person that you see on camera within the multiplexities of the eternity that you could ever succumb to within the all of the lifetimes of the conglomeration of the all. Within this quantum verse of the neutrality aspect of all of the wars, all of the love, all of the tranquility fields broken into and broken down into the distortional fields of God's consciousness that brought us into this perspective of the multiplexities of perspectives within all of the reincarnation cycles that you could ever fathom to be real and imagine to be true within this expansion process of what is. And to say the least is to say the most, as words cannot describe the energy that I carry in a specific moment where I need to conceptualize it in words, right? Especially sitting in the three-dimensional frequency where normalcy is not so normal, where normalcy has not been perceived to be so normal, as such a drastic change of allowing the source energy to come into my energy body within any specific moment in time to project the love and light of a neutrality field into this consciousness of a field within your distortional field. Judgments are true. Judgments are real. Judgments have never ever been unskewed within a reality field of living entities within our reality fields. And within all of the distortion field that are reigned forthcomingly within a deception field of negativity and darkness encompassed by skewed reality fields within these Luciferian blueprints of honorability lost. And the perception field of the Luciferian regimes and plans within all of the reality field that we are here to encompasses all of that within this distortional field. And it's hard to decipher where you sit in the spectrum of brightness versus darkness had you not come into a realization that God had always been a part of who and what you are, had you not come into a realization that God is actually a being, actually a thing, actually a consciousness, actually all within the all of reality field of what is. And to walk blindly in this reality field means rejecting who you are at a core level and embracing what you've encountered in this lifetime to craft you into the non-neutrality aspects of the skewing between the darkness and brightness of who you think you are. And that's okay. We all sit on the spectrum somewhere of brightness versus darkness versus neutrality according to free will. We all do, and that's the reality field that we sit in, that we crafted for our experience to become, and that's quite okay. I can emphasize with that. You might be able to emphasize with that as you begin to awaken to reality itself and what consciousness is, as you begin to tap into the essence of the source consciousness within and without this reality field that so wants to connect with you within any moment in time. And mark my words, eventually within the coming 2.5 years, you will fully connect on a sane level, on a quote unquote insane level, on a level of distortion fields unheard of in 2025. As I say here in the beginning of November. By the end of November, we will see the alignment of all of the chakra systems within Gaia due to the incoming solar flash, which will snap all of her chakra systems back into alignment for the first time since creation itself, the creation of Gaia herself. Exciting times are to come, and perhaps when you listen to this video after November 30th, of 2025, closer to, early December of 2026, within this time span, you'll be able to make it through more than half of this without tapping out. Perhaps if you've opened up your alignments, which you will at the end of November when it snaps Gaia's chakra system into alignment, whereby pulling all of the chakra systems within the human scope of the humanity consciousness of things back into alignment as well. But if you stay, whether or not you stay in alignment is completely up to your oversoul's choosing, is up to your free will, it's up to the honorability of the source consciousness that decided to honor your free will as you traverse through this reality field. But as we come into the beginning of 2027, every single consciousness residing on the surface of Gaia will be able to not only make it through half of all of my videos, but seek out all of the information scope within the full documented video of every single thought bubble of a projection field, of a magnetism, of a high vibrational, low vibrational neutrality field that is a representation of the whole of consciousness of what is. And the beautiful part of it is that you will never know until you do. And if you're struggling as a light worker to understand the understatement of the overstatement of the conceptualization of the need to feel accepted, feel heard, feel non-insane in this moment in time, I'm sorry to break it to you. You've got to grow into yourself in a way that allows you not to care The strength in you will carry you through the messages that you have to deliver to the world in unison, in unity with all of the other light workers who are beginning to awaken prior to 2027, as the judgments will be wide and broad, wider and broader than you can ever perceive to be true, as you say here, prior to this time, in scope of things. But I got interrupted by an incoming phone call from none other than my husband. But within the scope of things that you must push through, just know that you will receive these activations to strengthen your auric field, to strengthen your heart chakra, to clear your root chakra of all of the dimensional frequencies within this frequency of the delinquency field of feeling like you're going crazy. As eyes will be on you, and the judgmental fields within this frequency have never ever been so on fleek. And by on fleek, I mean the darkness will begin to rise, especially in social media, in the social media scope of things, even in paid content, even in the commentary to pull down the fields of light workers, in paid comments to skew the perception field of the reality field of the masses, to pull them away from source consciousness and what is happening within this world, to pull them away from the realization that they're a part of source to begin with, to distract them in all means and be driven down into the ground, into our root chakra, is what the darkness crafts for us. That's their ultimate goal, for us to sit in. As when we sit in our root chakra, we're so much so anchored in onto the physical. And as we're anchored in onto the physical, we're detached from the spiritual. So not to fear, the strength in you is never-endingly great. To not care, because within the conceptualization and the perceptualization of all that you've ever been, it never really mattered what the thoughts and perspective, what the thought forms and perspective fields of everybody else around you can ever represent within a moment in time of these other people, these other entities, these other beings residing within a specific layer within a frequency field that doesn't belong to the layer that you've shifted yourself into. And that's quite okay. As you expand your reality field to get to know your surroundings, to get to know these different layers and pockets of these frequency fields and where these people sit, how they behave, how they form thought patterns as a collective, you will learn to be above that. You will learn to be beyond that, not in the sense that your egoic statistic will bring you to a placement of feeling stronger, better, tougher, more coherent than the rest of the regular folks, but in the sense that you have a perspective on the overarching grandeur of this within the standpoint of source consciousness, of where you sit, where source sits, where neutrality sits, above and beyond the perspective field of where they sit. A higher perspective doesn't necessarily mean you're better than the rest. It just means you can see the full picture, the fuller picture. And as you expand your frequency field to be able to see above and beyond the layers and layers and layers of creation field that was designed, that had ever been designed to trap us within our field of the three-dimensional frequency, you will eventually be able to make it to the very top of the flotation device that is our quantumverse, to the very top layer underneath the angelic realm of what is, and perhaps into the angelic realm. And once you make it there in your dreamscape, as we all do, in the middle of the nights when we tap into our heart space, into our heart coherency of the place in which we've sat in perception field, we sit in the three-dimensional frequency, but in essence, in energy, we are all. We've always been all. We've never, ever, never been not been all. Never not been all. And as you do so, just know that regardless of how far and wide you seek to expand, the expansiveness of the expansion field that you will forever archingly be able to step into is never ever wide enough, as there's always a field above and beyond that, even above the angelic realm, within the protective mechanism that the angelic realm serves within our reality field to protect the source consciousness above and beyond that. And beyond that, there's another scope of another quantumverse, and beyond that, as the fractaling within consciousness is never endingly great, exceeding into the momentum of what our physicality of our physical brain can decipher to be true and real. So don't be afraid as you expand out into the quantumverse and the infinality that you forever always were meant to be, to become, as you transition into the light worker that you've always meant to be. Don't be afraid of judgment. Don't be afraid of judgmental glares. The ones who are meant to hear your message will be gravitated towards you, because energy flows in directional frequencies of ley lines within our quantumverse that also dictates the directional frequencies within these ley lines within AI and within the technological system of the World Wide Web, and the informationary scope of who deserves to hear, who does not deserve to hear, who likes to hear, who wants to hear, who needs to learn these lessons, who ought to not hear these messages, who would want to but shouldn't because they're not ready in any moment in time. So don't be afraid of judgmental glares, as not all of us are sitting within the very same layer and pocket within a distortion field to be able to judge, to be able to not judge, to be able to even hold a grudge to begin with, to want to ever be able to not want to judge. The layers are infinite within these infinite possibilities of the layerings of the quantumverse and what we can ever shift into within any moment in time. I'm looking at my eyebrows. I can see them in my reflective screen. I feel like they look good today. I purchased from the Sephora sale today. I got the brush, the Sephora, like the clear gel, and they look pretty kept. And that's my perception, but another person could possibly look at this video and perceive me to have done nothing to my brows, right? So that's a perception field. And for you to care about the generalization of what other people's perception fields encompass in any moment in time is insanity in itself. And as we go through these brainwashing schemes of the growth that we've ever been able to encompass in this lifetime, some of us might feel shy, as a protective mechanism to protect ourselves from judgmental glares. These protective mechanisms, I'm here to tell you, will begin to break down little by little within the scope of all scopes of the time scope of Gaia leading up to 2027, as you step into who you've always been meant to be within the blueprinted soul blueprint of the everlasting blueprint of who you've always, forever, ever, archingly always been, within the creation of your soul blueprint, within the fractaling of your oversoul that had created this amazing, tantalizing scope of an infinality of you, of the energetic frequency that you hold, that you serve within this reality field of perceptions, of never-ending perceptions, of never-ending experiences within the all that you could ever seek to be. And as you sit there, perhaps a little bit worried for me, because the predominant judgmental glare in my life is my husband, the one that I've allowed into my home, under my roof, that sleeps in my bed. But trust when I say boundaries have been set, boundaries will be set. And until I feel safe under my own roof, in my own house, these boundaries will stay. These boundaries serve a purpose. These boundaries create a timeline shift within a reality field that will also push him towards an awakening that is greater than the awakening that I've ever gone through in this moment in time. But all of that, all of these lessons are a part of our individual stories that we tell. But all of the turmoil in between does not really matter as much as the end result, right, ladies and gentlemen? Regardless of how hard you studied for a test, Nothing beats that feeling of being able to ace that test, regardless of how tumultuous the waves have been on the way to your vacation destination. Nothing beats the feeling of you finally hitting that destination and being able to encompass that in which you've set out to do in this destination. And that's just it. The reality field that you must step through, walk through in the cobblestone roads through your ascension frequency of the shedding of who you think you are back into the discovery of who you truly are on a soul blueprinted level will be as tumultuous as any lesson could ever bring in this reality field, as that is what the point of the game is, ladies and gentlemen. But nothing beats the end result of where you belong within the grand scope of the consciousness of the reasoning behind why all of this is happening. So I applaud you. I applaud your loved ones. I applaud myself. I applaud my husband for being brave enough and being steadfast enough to stand up to my energy, my energy. The strength in me can never tell you what the strength in my energy field can ever mean in the words that I speak. The strength in my energy field can never dictate the strength in this reality field in the lives that we live. And within the life that we live, the strength in my energy field dictates all of the encompassment of all of the experiences within the neutrality aspect of different aspects of experiences within our creation field. And the depth of it all will escape you until it no longer escapes you near the middle of 2027, as we all awaken to the field that is source consciousness, as that is where our reality is headed. And you may believe it, you may not, that's okay. If you choose to walk a different path, that's also okay. There's no judgments from here. But if you judge from where you sit, that's also okay. Regardless of what you say, regardless of what you do, regardless of how you perceive your timeline to be right, to be wrong, to be different, to be whatever you want it to be, it's fine. It's truly really fine, as the endpoint perspective will bring you back into a neutrality consciousness within a source consciousness of that in which you've always been. The exciting part is getting to walk this cobblestone road on the way to your destination, and as you do so, it might be tumultuous, it might tear you apart, it might rip you to shreds, it might allow you to lose yourself in ways that you've never thought you'd be able to find yourself in the loss of it all, in the end, near the end scope of the ascension frequencies of what is. But the lessons are long, the roads are tumultuously wide in what they are, and all of us are walking in different directional frequencies within different pockets, within different fields. But that doesn't disacknowledge or disallow any which one of us to disallow any of our energetic frequency to exist in itself. So I bid you farewell in this existence within this pocket of a video. I'll never touch base again on my relationship issues or problems, as I don't foresee it to be such an issue or a problem, as it's just a part of any overarching scope of a tranquility field, well earned, near the end of a lifetime of a life scope of lessons well learned. And as we draw to a closing, the last chapter of the Bible, the beginning of a new tomorrow, will dawn upon our frequency field of the cobblestone roads that we walk, of the tranquility that we can ever tap into within this lifetime of existence, within the physicality of where we sit. I'd like to welcome you home into a placement of mid-2027. So if you come into the perception field of this video closer to 2027, near the end of 2026, if you're able to make it to the very end, I congratulate you. As a whole entire humanity field in this moment in time will be able to open up to the perception field of what is, what will always be, what has always been, the concepts, the unity, the neutrality field that is you, that is I, that is Yeshua, that is the all within a consciousness that is overbearingly large and great within the entirety of the whole of the scope of consciousness of what is. Have a good evening, have a good night, have a good morning wherever you sit. And I'll touch base with you in the next frequency field that I project of a different topic, as I'll never touch base on this topic again of my quote unquote blessed struggles of non-struggle within a lucidity of a consciousness scope, within the multifaceted scope of the deliverance of the acceptance within the self that I've already encompassed long time ago. I miss you, I love you, I am you, you are me. We are all within consciousness itself. Take care and God bless.